Well, the fuselage is right back where it's always been. Brought it back up and got it in the basement again now. Except now, instead of building stuff, we can start putting things together. First thing I got to do is take those lower boot cowl halves off and the side panels. And I can take all that tape and masking off of there. Probably take the door off. Probably should take the baggage compartment door off too, the forward one. Get them out of the way. And then start trying to fit that belly tank up there. Well, I got those lower boot cowl panels off and the two side panels. Now I can pretend like I'm in the Obama White House and unmask things. I got everything unmasked, all the tape and everything off of it, all cleaned up. That was almost as much a chore as masking in the first place. And I've kind of got the belly tank hung up there. Still need to do some positioning on it and stuff to get it the right position, but I took some straps. I got a couple of just regular belt type straps that I put on to lengthen them out, and then I've got a couple ratchet straps that I run around, hooked on the window on the left side and onto these other straps on this side. I put the belly tank on a creeper, set it underneath the fuselage there, and then kind of picked it up with the straps until we got it up. I need to do some fine positioning to get it in the right spot. There it is. We'll get the straps ready here now and start putting it together. Well, the aux belly tank is pretty much lined up here on the fuselage on the bottom. Got it set up where it's going to go. There's a shallow V that runs longitudinally down the fuel tank fore and aft, and that lines up with the stringer that runs down the center line of the fuselage. That's lined up with that real well. The fuel tank filler neck comes out well past the lower stringer and doesn't touch it at all. Go back to where I was originally trying to fit this up before we did any covering or anything like that. That filler neck bumped right up against that lower longeron, and even then couldn't position the fuel tank all the way into the center line. It hung out on this left side quite a bit. So we've got good clearance there now on that fuel filler neck. These wire pulls on the rear float attach fitting are lined up perfectly through the relief holes in the fuel tank here. Both sides, right and left, both line up perfectly down through there. Now on the other fuselage, this fuel tank was wide enough, and where the flying wires came through there, they actually rubbed on the top of the opening here through the fuel tank, and you could just barely get in there and tighten those up. In fact, you couldn't put the lock nut on the barrel of the turnbuckle on the flying wire at all and barely get the pin in there, and they rubbed on that aluminum, and they caused some abrasion on there, some chafing, some galling on the aluminum, and that kind of started the corrosion and stuff in there, because you couldn't keep anything in there to prevent it from metal to metal contact. It looks like I've got plenty of clearance here now on those. We've been working on that fuel tank to get it ready to put on, and it's all buttoned up and ready to go to put on the airframe, the fuselage. So one of the things I had to do is modify the straps. Now these are the straps that held the tank up. There's 3 of them. 2 of them were just bolted into tabs there that went on the bottom of the fuselage on the lower longeron, just like that. Just a number 3 bolt held them on. And then there was a second tab, a shorter one that attached to the right side. This one happens to be the one that attaches onto the landing gear, but the other ones just had a little bolt hole in it, just like this one did. Anyway, you put a 1/4 inch bolt, a number 4 bolt, through that hole here and down through here, and then tighten it up, and that pulls it tight to hold that tank on there. Well, of course these straps are too short with the wider fuselage. I measured this out. This is 16 gauge, these straps here, and they're 3/4 inches wide. So I ordered some 3/4 inch wide strips of 16 gauge. This is 316 stainless steel. Then I went and welded some tips on, or these tubes on the ends of these straps. Now these straps are way longer than they needed to be. Well, I went ahead and welded a tube onto each one in case I needed some extras. I was afraid maybe these bolts were stuck in these short strips here, these short pieces. I was afraid maybe I wouldn't get them out and I'd have to make new ones, but I was able to get those out. Anyway, I've got 2 of them made up with ends on them, and that's all I need for the front and the rear strap. Now the middle strap, they said, is a little bit different. It attaches into the rear landing gear attach fitting, and it has this little tab here as well as these little barrels on there. And this one is reusable, nothing wrong with it, but this one is just like all the rest of them, is going to be too short. Oh, I've spent the last few hour or so making up some new tabs here. These are 11 gauge stainless steel, which is the same thickness as these. They're just identical to that. And I laid out these patterns and cut them out with a hacksaw, and then ground them down on the sander. Just took the file to them and cleaned up the edges a little bit. So I'm going to weld those onto one of these straps right here. I only need one of them, but I got two just in case I screw up with one, which is highly likely. And then I'll leave it long, and I won't put a barrel on the end of it until I get the airplane made up, the tank on it. Now these, I'll bolt these onto the other straps here and then pull them around the fuel tank and then cut them off to length once I figure out how long they need to be. And this end just has a simple hole in it for a number 3 screw, or bolt, so that's I just cut that off to length and drill a hole in it and bolt it up then. But this one is going to be a little different. I have to get this thing welded on there and then figure out how long it's going to be and then weld the barrel on the end of it. Well, I got that one welded on there, that tab. And it's good enough that I'm not going to do the one on the other end. I'll need to put a barrel on this one after I get it measured and set up on the airplane. This is the first strap that I did. I just made the new one and cut it off to fit. This is the old one on there. You see, it's just about maybe 2 inches too short. I could get a longer bolt and make that work, but I got the new strap. I got it off and cut and got it on the welding table. I'll go practice my welds again a little bit and put a new barrel on that new one. I took these tabs and just tightened a crescent wrench up on them and bent them in a little bit so that they angle down more in line with what the straps are going to go around that tank, and they're less obtrusive. They don't stick out of the line of the fuselage here, the vertical line of the fuselage as much. I've got my strap on here. This first one is the original one, the short leg, and then this one is the new one that I've got cut. I've got a hole drilled in that tab on the other side. I've got that formed up into shape and everything, so now that's ready to come off there and be cut. I'll have to cut it and drill a hole in the other end of it there, then I can mount that one up. I've got the strap, the stub end, hooked up there on the front too, but I don't really like that. It hangs down there. Of course, that's going to be tipped forward quite a bit. It goes across more towards the front of the tank there and kind of keeps the tank from sliding forward as well as holding it up. But I'm not sure I like that the way it is. I think it's too long and that bolt gets right out there into the tank. I've going to have plenty of ends here left over. I welded tubes on each one of these straps that I made up. I welded a tube on each end of it. So when I cut it off, I've got a usable free end on the other end, and I can make up a shorter one and put on that front. I'll keep the bolt and the connector more out of the direct line of the exhaust and stuff that comes out of the engine and keep it away from the tank itself. I've been putting a piece of duct tape on these straps, help keep them from cutting into that paint. Duct tape is a little bit more cushiony than masking tape is. There was nothing on those straps before. I'm debating now whether to put anything on them or not. If you put something on them, then water's going to collect in there, moisture's going to collect in there and stay in there. I did take those all down and take the die grinder and went over the edges of those, the full length of them, and kind of rounded the edges there, deburred them, rounded them over, and I took a fine Scotch Brite pad and went over them all so they smoothed them up. They're not as rough as they were, but we got the rear strap on there and that's tightened up. I think this upper strap piece here run into the lower one, so I needed to tighten it up. I could always take it off and take this down to the sander, grind that off a little bit, and I could tighten it up some more, but it seems like it's pretty good there right now. And the middle one is lined up. I just have to weld a barrel onto it. Okay, I got this front strap fitted up. What I did is I took and cut off one of the ones that I made up, the tag end of the rear one where I cut it off. I cut it off short enough so that it's not getting down into this tank and it'll pull there. I've got my other long one wrapped around there, and I've got it kind of shaped. I've got it set on the other side where I can mark it and cut it to length and drill a hole in it. Then the tank will be supported, and I'll just get the middle one made up. Then it'll be just like it was supposed to be that way. The front strap is fitted on there, and it's good and tight. That should hold it on pretty good. That's going to work. So I have to just weld that barrel on the middle strap so I can get it put on there, and then it'll be all suspended by the straps. Well, these are all going to come off of here once I get everything all set up. I want to put Peralcatone on all of these pieces and stuff here, on all the bolts and all the fittings and stuff like that on both sides. I also have to figure out something for the chafing on there. I haven't figured that out yet. One of my boxes up here, I've got some Teflon tape that I might look at to put on those. I thought I was going to be stuck here for a while because I couldn't find the right length of bolts. The ones that I took out of here I measured were 23 AN 4-23s, stainless steel of course, so they're AN 4C-23As. And when I started looking through all my stuff, I didn't have any of those, and so I thought I was going to be stuck here and just use one of the old ones or a couple of them just to fabricate this and get everything set up. And I got to going through the stuff I've got up here in the basement, and I found a tray with them in it. I got the barrel welded onto that strap on the end of it. This is the jig that I've got set up for welding the barrel on. Before I welded the barrel on, I laid it flat on this copper, and I cut off a section of this stainless steel. This is just some 14 gauge stainless that I cut off a 1/4 inch or so wide on the saw, and then I'd take and nip off a piece of that about 1/2 inch long or so and weld onto the strap, which gives this barrel a standoff away from that strap a little bit so that you can get a nut on there. Otherwise there's not enough room between the idea of the barrel where the bolt goes through and the strap, and you can't get the nut to thread on there. Anyway, I weld that on there first, and then weld the barrel on there. Now I take a reamer and run through that barrel to clean that out and make sure the bolt can run through there free, and then that strap can be fitted up on the airplane. Alright, there's the fuel tank all hanging up. Here's my rear strap. This is the left side. You can see the wire pull there for the flying wire, and that lines up perfectly down that hole there, the relief hole. There's the filler neck. Got lots of room between the filler neck now and the lower longeron. There's the middle strap. This is the one I had to weld the teardrop on to match the old one there. That's the rear landing gear attach fitting there. And then here's this strap goes right down just in front of the clear spot there for checking the fuel line. And here's the front strap here. It runs around. Now it goes down underneath there, but it's forward so that that'll keep the tank from slipping forward. It's got little knobs built right into the, molded right into the tank here to keep that strap from going too far up. But it's on there good and tight now. Lined up perfect just about down the center line of the airplane. I measured it, and it's just about as perfect as you can get. Now here's the right side with all the connectors. There's the front one. This is the one I shortened up. Made that one. It's cut off from one of the other longer pieces that we had. Here's the center one hooked up here. Now this one was the factory, or the one that came on the airplane, the teardrop there. I need to put a 364 on there instead of a 365. We don't need a 365 on that, and I don't have enough thread sticking through there, so we'll put a 364 on there. And there's the rear one. And there's that wire pull It lined up perfectly down that hole there. Okay, I like the looks of that now. Okay, I'm not quite done yet. Of course, I still want to put some kind of protection between the tank and these straps so they don't chafe in there like they did before. We've got the tube that goes down through there, the guide tube for the water rudder retract cables, and that attaches to that center strap under there. So we've got to figure something out for it.